Live from Utah's Wasatch Front, the pulse of the Mountain West, where the issues that shape your life meet the truth that sets you free. Across Utah, across the Republic, and around the world, welcome. This is KMMU.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Goud Crowd. I am your host, Goud. We are on every Monday from 5 to 7 p.m. And at some point I'll read to you my the little blurb that we do. I took a week-long break last week just because I wasn't feeling very inspired. But we're back. We got a lot to talk about today. So we will have on Brandy. So Back Home with Brandy will be on, and she'll be talking about primary results in Illinois. I think the last time that she came on, we actually talked about the upcoming primary election there and the choices, and we had some wagers as to who would win. So I actually have no idea who won, and so she's going to come on and kind of talk about that today. And then at 6:30, we will have Jen Garner on. She is running against Stuart Adams, the president of the Senate. And I actually think that's one of the most important races that we have this cycle. The way I see it, we have a few really important races this year. Maybe let me think about this. I think that race is really important. It is critical that Stuart Adams is knocked out of the Senate. He is corrupt. He is, and we have evidence that he uses his power and abuses it, and he abused it to help his granddaughter get a light sentence for raping a 13-year-old boy. So, and then, part of what bothered me about that case is and I talked about this in a previous show, but they attacked the boy and his mother as being, like, the suggestion was they're from a broken home, they're working class, as if that justified what his granddaughter did to that kid. So I have no tolerance for that. And I hope Utah's delegates will see through his justifications of it, and they'll knock him out. I also think another one is the Utah County Clerk race. It's really critical that you hold on to Aaron Davidson in that seat. He's the most transparent county clerk we have. He's the most database county clerk we have. And he's the only one out there that's actually, I don't want to say the only one, only because I don't know all the details of the small county clerks, but in terms of the big counties, so Davis, Weber, Salt Lake, Utah, and Washington County, he's the best county clerk. And you really want to hold on to him because he's the only one that is willing to push back against the lieutenant governor, who is, corrupt to the core. I think the CD3 race is really important. Obviously, I am helping Phil in that one, but also I think in that case, we have a candidate who represents Utahns, and that's Phil, against an establishment candidate that is Celeste Malloy. She's not even really from here, so she's originally from Nevada, I think. But since 2019, she's actually lived in Northern Virginia. Her address in Utah is her sister's address that she just uses as a placeholder. That's not really someone who's rooted in Utah, who understands it. There's other issues I think there too, that voting record, policies, the way she's talked about conservatives, it's overall just not good. We can do better with the congressional seat. CD2, I think is a good one too. A good opportunity to knock out Blake Moore. I don't know if it'll happen though, because I think a lot of people are kind of bamboozled with he played football in college and he's athletic thing. So we'll see where that one goes. Good looks and can get you pretty far, I think, in life. So we'll see. That'll be a good test of that one. And I'm not saying that Carrie Ann Lisenby is not good looking. Like, she's fine. But Blake Moore, I think a lot of people think is good looking, is charming or whatever. I don't think he's charming because I've had lunch with him before, and I think he's kind of douchey and boring. But, I guess if you have a more kind of limited experience with him, you may find him charming. So that one, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I think might be kind of critical. And then the other interesting one are the races out by me because I live here. but I think it's Senate District 18. That one's interesting because you've got 3 candidates running. You have Dan McKay, the incumbent. You have Doug Fifia, and Eternal Saints just did some reporting on Doug in terms of his donors and stuff, which I think is interesting. And Tracy Halverson running. And I think that race, to me, it depends on what you're looking for. And I'm not a delegate this year, so I think, well, if we'll have to see who makes it through the primary. But to me, Tracy represents that bull in a china shop. So I know 100% if she is my senator, that she will be exposing corruption in the Senate. And I mean, they'll probably try to impeach and remove her, if I'm honest with you, because she'll just go in there and expose everything. And you'll probably see some real changes happen. Then Mr. Producer says, Tracy the Disruptor. Accurate. Then after that one, you've got Doug Fifia. I think he's a version of being an establishment candidate. So I don't feel like he did much in his 2 years in the House, except he's very focused on AI issues. But a lot of it has to do with controlling controlling you, exposing you, making it so you can't, like, I just feel like it's sold as protecting us, but really it makes it harder to be able to be anonymous on the internet and stuff like that for those of you that want to be anonymous. And then Dan McKay, and I always say Dan McKay is a mixed bag because obviously he has had some really bad bills, like he changed the flag, and I know that is something that he will never move past. SB 54, I think he was the House sponsor of that. So those are 2 big, really bad ones. But then he also has some good things he's done, and just from a personal perspective, when I think I've talked about this, that my previous employer, I was targeted by Equality Utah because I don't support the trans agenda. And one of the people who did it was this woman, Sunny Washington. She used to be a Republican delegate. I don't think that she is anymore. But she was also on the Salt Lake Community College Board of Trustees. Well, Governor Cox reappointed her to that position. I think it was last year. And Dan actually went and made sure that she did not get reconfirmed. So she lost her seat on that Board of Trustees. And I personally appreciate that because I do think I disagree with him on things. And, he can be ornery for sure. Maybe that's part of the charm. But at the same time, he was responsive to me when I had something that was really important. And to me, it was important because of what Sunny had done to me, but also because it indicated what types of things she's willing to do for Equality Utah. And I was not comfortable with someone like that being in any public position because she will abuse her power to help Equality Utah. So, I want to be fair about this, that I do think that's a positive on Dan's part. So, okay, let's see. He says, Mr. Producer says all of our streaming problems have been fixed. Are we sure about that? Let me just check real quick. Let's see. Am I streaming? Oh, I am. Okay. Yeah, I'm on X. Okay. Now now let's get back on the show. So a couple things here. First of all, if you are helping Phil Lyman collect signatures, fantastic. Please keep doing it. I've gotten 4 packets today from volunteers out there who have been going out and collecting signatures from their neighbors and friends. Packets typically have 10 to 20 signatures. You can print your own packet out if you go to Phil Lyman's website, lymanforutah.com. There is an option to print your own packet. You just print it out. You want it to be landscaped. You staple it 3 times at the top, and then you go collect your signatures, and then you turn it in. We have until Friday to get this done. I just urge people to go out and do it because honestly, it'll give you a great opportunity to talk to your neighbors, but also it shows that a grassroots army can do better than someone who's paying. Celeste is buying her signatures, or I should say her donors are buying her signatures for her, which means that she will owe them something at the end of the day when if she gets her signatures. Okay, then I have this. I thought this was kind of interesting, but one of our themes on this show is how a lot of Utah men come off as big old homos. So let me show you this one. I can't think of a better way to say it. I'm sorry. Here's one example.
One of the things I love about public service is the opportunity to get things done, to move the needle, and to make a difference in people's lives. So, some of the stuff that I'm most proud of that I've accomplished when I was mayor was working to address homeless services and to reform our homeless services system to make a difference for people.
Okay. I can't actually really listen to that, but I just gotta be honest with you. I can't believe that anybody listens to that guy talk and thinks that he is straight. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't get it. But if you look at the description he puts here, he's very obsessed with gay and trans stuff. So he helped the homeless services. Homelessness services is a big scam. What they do, this is just money laundering to Democrat causes. But then also he helped advance LGBTQ non-discrimination protections. And in Congress, he supported the Equality Act. The Equality Act is bad news because it would make transgender people, it would give them basically they'd be able to push into everything, sports, the whole bit. And so that's a bad bill. I don't think it passed. I'm glad that it was killed. But it just shows you he's allegedly heterosexual, but obsessed with gay and trans stuff. So I don't think you should vote for him. Totally ridiculous. And I think people should question whether that's actually a hetero guy. I'm going with, I highly doubt it. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is this, funding lawsuits. So I talked about a couple shows ago how I helped this client. He's a mechanic, working class guy, and he was abused by this woman who filed a stalking injunction against him. Okay, and she is a full-on lunatic. She made a video where she thought he was following her, and she actually said that if she found out it was him, she was going to stab him in the throat. So he has every reason to be scared for his life and safety because this woman is a full-on lunatic. Well, the problem with this is, we won, and the courts did not award attorney's fees. And that's a general problem in Utah, where when people abuse the process and they do stuff like that, we don't get the money, and that hurts my ability to go and defend other people in these lawsuits. And I guess my question to the audience is, are you open to fundraising for people like this so that people like me can go and we can represent them and still make a living? The difficulty is I can't really take on cases like this and then be able to have make even a middle class living, really, because I end up having to do free work for people. And I love doing it, but I have to be realistic about the fact that I have to pay my bills too, and that makes it difficult. So I'm just, and I know he put out a GoFundMe at some point. I shared it. I don't think he got a lot of money in it. And I don't understand why, because on the left, they have unlimited funds to go and do their lawfare. I mean, in Utah, I have multiple examples of lawfare that's been done by these people. We have the case that I had with April Despain. That was lawfare by a rich, liberal white woman. And then this was also lawfare. In this case, it wasn't a rich, liberal white woman. I guess it was probably a middle-class liberal white woman who did it. And in both cases, they're attacking conservatives. They're using it to shut down speech. They're using it to control what we say. They're using it to discourage people from going out and participating in protests and things like that. So I'm looking for ways to try to raise money so that I can do lawsuits like this and help people, but also be able to be comfortable. So I'm looking for suggestions here. And I don't know if it'd be helpful if I just do the GoFundMe myself instead of having them do it, right? And let me give you another example, because this could come here too, of just lawfare. This guy, David, I don't know, Delayden, I think is his name. Let me show you this. He actually exposed that Planned Parenthood was selling baby parts after they aborted people's children. And the whole thing was true. California then dragged him through a 10-year prosecution, and they lost. They lost the prosecution because it was just lawfare by the government of California. You have the baker in Colorado. He's been going through it for 13 years. He won at the Supreme Court, and they're still dragging him through. lawfare, attacking his livelihood because he doesn't want to make cakes for gay weddings or for transgender reveals and things like that, which makes sense to me. But this is the point, is like, we have to have the capability to fund these types of lawsuits, even because they're coming to Utah, and they're going to come hard and fast, especially as Democrats start to expand their foothold in the state. You know, with the new CD1 being a Democrat seat, you're going to see a lot more left-wing money pour in, and they will use that to target conservatives across the board. And I would expect lawfare to happen. Unfortunately, with our judiciary being woke, I see that also being part of the problem. But, you know, it's just something for people to think about. If you have suggestions, I would love to hear them. I just want to find a way to be able to help people like this, you know, without having to turn people away, because, you know, I can't just provide free services all the time. I have to make a living. And then my mother calls me and she gets upset. So tells me stuff like, you should not run a business. Okay. We have the state convention coming up in April 25th. So I just want to renew my call that both Lieutenant Governor Henderson and Holly Richardson be banned from attending. In 24, Lieutenant Governor Henderson posted this lie about the convention. She said the GOP convention is no longer a family-friendly event. I'm mortified by the vulgarity and viciousness my young nieces were exposed to by another gubernatorial campaign supporters. It's embarrassing, sad, and clearly no longer for kids. This was a lie. It never happened. Lieutenant Governor Henderson is a nasty, lying, she's a nasty woman and a pathological liar. So I just want people to understand that she has never retracted the statement or apologized for it. And the reason she did this is because at the time she knew that they had lost the delegate vote. They didn't get at least 40% of the vote. And the only path they had to the primary ballot was through signatures. And she knew at the convention that they didn't have 28,000 verified GOP signatures. So they were going to have to cheat. And I think she was trying to actually delegitimize the convention, which is why she put this post up. Until she retracts it, I think that the GOP should ban her from showing up to any more conventions. The ultimate goal should be to remove her from the Republican Party. This is a nasty, abhorrent woman who is a pathological liar, and she's not a Republican by even like a liberal Republican. She's just not a Republican. And we should be more cognizant of that and kick her out of the party. Okay. Next is this. So I found out this week that the Utah legislature changed our laws because of the lawsuit that Phil filed. And this is really good stuff here. So in this latest legislative session, the legislature actually passed a law, it's SB 153, changing the privacy protections for voters. So before we had, let me think here. So we have three categories of voters, right? Right now, we have this right now. Public, so there's no protections for that. Private, anybody can be private. And then withheld. And so for withheld, you have to be military, law enforcement, have a protective order, or something like that. And so we had those people, military, and then there's a twist there. On May 12th of 2020, everybody who was classified as private was converted to withheld. I don't know why that happened. I've never been able to find an explanation, but that's the reality of it. So currently there's about 300,000 people in Utah who have the withheld status. There are clearly not 300,000 law enforcement, military, people with protective orders. So there's a lot of people in there that got converted on May 12th of 2020. And then there's 1 million people who are classified as private. And that's out of about 2 million voter records total. So about 60% of all voters have some sort of a privacy protection, which means that a member of the general public cannot see those voter records right now. Well, in response to Phil's lawsuit under the National Voter Registration Act, the legislature actually changed the law And we're now seeing the beginnings of some of what's been going on because of that. So let me play for you a video. I'm going to play this video, but I just want to tell people, if you're, this is a video of Lieutenant Governor Henderson. So just keep in mind that if you have children in the car, you may want to cover their ears because she's probably going to lie. So here we go. Sorry. I'm not a fan of hers. So just in case you haven't figured that out. Hold on. Okay. Let me grab this. Here we go. Let's see. I can't.
Got a letter from my office today talking about your voter registration privacy status. So I just want to talk about this for a minute, tell you what this is, what it isn't. This is because of a law that was passed by the legislature, SB 153, during the last legislative session that just ended. And what this did is it changed the privacy protections for Utah voters.
We have got to get this fixed, Mr. Producer.
Most Utah voters. So now what does this mean? This is not, it's not the same thing as the private, personal, sensitive.
It's going to drive me up the wall.
Data that.
Okay. Anyway, so here's what happened. They passed this law. As part of the law, it requires the lieutenant governor to send out 2 notices to people. The first notice went out last week to everybody that had withheld status. So 300,000 people got a letter telling them your status is going to change. You can apply to be what's called an at-risk voter, but the at-risk voter is the withheld status essentially. So you have to be military, law enforcement, have a protective order against you, or live with someone with a protective order, and then you can apply for that status, and your vote and your voter record can continue to be protected as an at-risk voter. Now, the problem with this is you fill out this form, but you are essentially, let me think, you're actually just, what's the word? You're writing down or attesting that you live with someone that has a protective order, that you're a threat of domestic violence, or that you're law enforcement or military, I think also, and then they just take your word for it. And so I think there's going to be some abuse that happens here, and that's going to be a problem. But we should see a massive reduction in the number of people that are withheld from 300,000, hopefully down to a reasonable number. This week, not next week, everybody whose voter record is classified as private will also get a notice from the lieutenant governor's office letting them know that their record is going to be changed to public. Now, here's what's kind of interesting is I've been at the Davis County Clerk's office because I've been poll watching and stuff. So last week I was there and people were coming in with the letter from the lieutenant governor's office and they were complaining about having their status changed. So I'll just give you an example. One woman came in and she said, "Oh, I got this letter. I need my voter information to be private." She was an elderly lady. And when the woman asked her why, she said, "Well, because I'm a retired government employee." Well, if you look, that's actually not one of the bases for being considered a at-risk voter. So her application should be rejected. But the clerk's office was telling people to just turn in their form and the clerks will take care of it, which makes me wonder if Lieutenant Governor Henderson has sent out some sort of guidance to the clerks, actually urging them to be lenient with these privacy protections. If she has, it's going to just be another example of her abusing the laws to help causes that she thinks need to be helped. It's a problem. She's a problem. And actually, like she should be impeached and removed from office, but because we don't have that kind of culture in Utah, she's sitting there abusing her office with every chance she gets. So that's that. So I think this is kind of interesting. And here's the thing is Todd Weiler and this is what I was going to talk about, is Todd Weiler actually acknowledged that this law was passed because of Phil's NBRA lawsuit. So we had filed a lawsuit. You know, I'm Phil's lawyer for that, as is the Public Interest Legal Foundation, challenging the state's refusal to provide the full voter rolls, including the private and withhelds. And then in that lawsuit, we actually said they could keep the people that were supposed to be withheld because they're, you know, military law enforcement, but not the people that were impermissibly converted from private to withheld. Well, Todd posted on X, and he said that this SB 153 was enacted in response to a lawsuit filed by Phil Lyman. Due to an existing federal law, the NBRA, he doesn't say that here, but that's what it was, that was not previously enforced, the legislature was advised that either we needed to pass legislation to make this change, or the court would eventually force us to. I think this is fascinating. So the legislature now has completely changed the law because of this lawsuit that Phil filed. So thank you, Phil. I think he should deserve credit for this. And then on top of that, what's fascinating about this is they're allowing the lieutenant governor and the attorney general to continue to challenge the lawsuit and spend money, even though the legislature thinks that we are correct, meaning I, as Phil's lawyer, and Phil are correct as to whether the state is complying with the NBRA and what that looks like. So when they talk to you about budgets and how they want to do, you know, we have to do this for the budget and that for the budget, well, they don't even believe the stuff that they say. They, you know, like they're allowing them to waste this money. Now, just of note, at the district court, we lost that lawsuit. It was dismissed based on standing. And it was Judge Neufer, who is a Biden appointee. So you should question, or not a Biden, I'm saying Obama appointee. You should question why we have an Obama appointee in Utah when we've had 2 Republican senators that could have kept their blue slips. So I'm just going to leave that out there. Yeah, just a question to ask. Why is that the case? And then, hold on. Sorry. Okay, and so that's a question that I think people should ask about. But also, the judge was totally biased. He was the judge that sentenced Phil, I believe, when he had the whole Recapture Canyon issue. And he actually cited that case in this decision, which was a total, what I would call an FU to Phil. I mean, I think it's problematic that we have a judge with that type of demeanor on the bench at all. He should be, frankly, impeached and removed. But we appealed that decision to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. Our brief is due tomorrow, so we'll be filing our opening brief in that case. But I think you can see how, like, to me, if the legislature thinks that we're correct, they should actually tell the attorney general not to continue to pursue their appeal, and that instead they should go ahead and just, you know, say that we're correct. But I guess that's just not how they operate. But, you know, like, they'll always talk about budgets, but the budgeting stuff only applies for something that you want, not for the abuse of office and stuff that goes on with that. So it's just something to think about that I think is kind of weird. There's another piece of this that I wanted to talk about real quick, and that is, I was taking a look. Jonah W says that's crazy. Everything about Utah is what I would call crazy. Okay. Something like that. Although the entire getting voters all worked up with these notices it is a little bit crazy. And I will say this: the notice that she sent out does not match the language that was put in the statutes. She has made some changes to it, and I think they're like, some of them are kind of more minor. One of them is bolding language. I think some of this is aimed at trying to get people riled up, right? Oh my God, it's so awful. My information is going to be public. And I think some of this is people think that they're more important than they are. When I was listening to that woman at the Davis County Clerk's office, all I could think is, nobody knows who you are. Like, literally, like, that woman has main character syndrome. She thinks that people are going to look her up on the voter rolls, and then they're going to go to her house and say, you're a registered, I assume Democrat for her. How dare you? And all I can think is, I can look at you and tell you're a Democrat. I don't need the voter rolls. You know, like, I'm not coming to your house. No one's coming to your house. No one cares. I have trannies in Salt Lake City who hate my guts. They don't come out to my house, and my address is public. So, like, I think people need to chill out about this. No one is going through a 2 million voter roll list to find you and then come to your house. Like, give me a break. Oh, that's a good one. Disagree Butter says, can you write a letter to the judge citing the new law to get a judgment in your favor? That's a good question. You know, it's funny, when we were drafting it, we were talking about whether to include this tweet by Todd Weiler, right? Because, yes, and then he says, you know, like Stuart Adams did. Yeah, I know, right? And the thing is, we were talking about whether to include that tweet. I don't think it's going to be included, mainly because I'm not sure that we want to raise the issue, but we'll see what the Lieutenant Governor's office does. I wonder, Caroline Teaches Math says, I wonder how much money was spent to send out these notices. Well, probably it's going to be a lot, because it's like they're going to send out 1.3 million notices. So I don't even know how much mail costs anymore. Does anybody know? Well, let's say it's less than $1, plus you get a print. I would say like at least $1 million. Well, at least $1.3 million, right? Yeah, and that's the point. Caroline Teaches Math says there are many avenues to find one's information. Exactly. The voter rolls is like, it's actually, if you've ever looked at a voter roll, it's extremely difficult to navigate because the documents are so big that they'll slow your computer down. It's difficult to just kind of go through them. When I was running the Election Integrity Committee in 2021, we were trying to go through the voter rolls that we got for Salt Lake County to see if we could find indicators of people that shouldn't be registered to vote or anything that was suspicious, like a lot of people registered at one address, anything like that. And I'll just tell you, these documents were just very difficult to work with because they had so much data in them. So, like going through a voter roll, if someone really wants to find you, that's not the way they're going to do it. Yeah. And unless you're like really sophisticated, I doubt that you're doing anything to change your address. Mr. Producer says, first class stamps are 78 cents. Can you believe that? Well, that is very unfortunate. Okay, it looks like we have Brandy here, so let's bring her on and see what she's got to say. Okay, this one, Disagree Butter says, I know it costs $11.95 to overnight you a signature packet. Well, we appreciate your help. So thank you. Okay, let me get Brandy on if I can get my computer to not freeze this. Okay. Hello, how are you, Brandy?
Hi, Goud. I apologize. I'm filming from my car today.
Yes.
I don't have the beautiful
backdrop.
backdrop. Oh, thank you. I'm taking a break from work to give a brief report. So
you're just covered up. Is that what's going on? Okay. So well, we appreciate that.
I wasn't expecting to be working right now, but here I am. So
well, it looks like it's a nice day out.
The sun is setting, so it's very bright. So
okay.
But yes, it's as nice as Chicago gets. And I think the high was 55, but feels like 32. Oh,
well, that's nice. Yeah. We're having like perfect weather here. Perfect.
Oh, great. But I did come back with I just wanted to give a report before it became old news, because last time I was here we talked about the primaries.
Yes.
For the governor. And so of course, I think the only candidate running for the Democratic Party for governor was our good friend Pritzker, and he won. So no surprise there.
He's the heavyweight in that side. So
yes. I see what you did there, Goud. He's not so heavy anymore. I think he might be taking something. Yeah. He looked a little slimmer in his advertisements, telling us he's going to lower taxes if he's elected.
That's interesting, since he has raised them multiple times, I guess. And now
I think my confusion is he's been the governor for 2 terms now. Why do we have to wait till you get elected for a 3rd term? Seems a little fishy to me, but but he has raised them several times on everything he can raise them on. So, but he won the Democratic one, and then we made our bets on who was going to win the Republican primary.
Yes. So who'd we get?
So, we talked about Sheriff Mendrick, who was a good candidate, but didn't seem so savvy with the financial number part. He did not get very many votes. He got about 8 to 9% of the votes, not very high.
Okay.
I think we talked about that Rick Hedman, I think it was Heidman. He was the one my mom liked because he seemed like he would play dirty and be able to actually battle Pritzker. He only got like 8% of the votes. So,
Okay.
and then we had, I believe is Ted Grabowski. He was the one I really, really liked because he actually had numbers and he did a presentation and he seemed like he knew his stuff. He did very well. He won Chicago and all the Chicago suburbs.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Apparently, Chicago Flips Red really liked him, so he got a lot of support in our area. But the rest of the state preferred Darren Bailey, which is the one I predicted would win. He was the guy who doesn't show up to any events or do anything at all. He ran against Pritzker last time and lost. So apparently we can't learn our lesson there. We're going to just do this again. Because he's still not showing up to events. So I think his plan is the same as last time, which is don't show up to events or talk.
Yeah, that's
too much.
That's unfortunate. So that kind of because you had predicted he would win because of name ID, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's kind of what happened. He doesn't really have a platform besides he doesn't like Pritzker and he's a Christian farmer, but he doesn't come to anything to give any more information. So he's on a lot of farm boards and stuff, but yeah, it's not really helpful. So my prediction came true. It was just people voted for him. The rest of the state outside Chicagoland just all voted for him. He kind of swept the state.
That's so interesting because I thought Chicago just kind of outweighs the rest of the state by a long shot, right?
That's what it usually is, but I think it's only when you're doing elections with Democrats and Republicans. The Democrats just outnumber the Republicans, but when I guess it's Republican voting primaries, the rest of the state has more Republicans than Chicago, which I guess could be true. What's in Chicago? 10 of us?
Yeah, that's interesting.
So, yeah. But yes.
Okay, so you get, I will say, I think our system would be better for Illinois than the system you guys have. The primaries, our system is the caucus convention system. It has a little bit of a twist to it. I won't tell you about that because whatever, but
that's a cliffhanger now.
But well, okay, I'll explain it. So basically, candidates go through the convention, and we have so first we have caucuses. So we had them a couple weeks ago. You'll go there, you'll pick your state and your county delegates. Then you'll have your county and your state conventions. At your county convention, you'll do county candidates and any state candidates that are only in one county. At your state convention, you do federal, statewide, multi-county races. All will be at the state convention. So then if you go to convention as a candidate and you get at least 40% of the vote, you'll go to the primary. If you get over 60% of the vote at that convention, you are the nominee for the party for that race. The only twist is they have a signature path to kind of circumvent the convention that they created. There's some problems with that, though. Like there was cheating in the 24 one where the lieutenant governor and the governor, they didn't get at least 40% of the vote at the state convention. And then they went on and they still put them, and they didn't have 28,000 signatures that they needed. And so they still put themselves on the ballot. They won the primary, allegedly. And then they ended up winning the governorship.
Cheating in politics? I've never heard of such a thing.
Yeah, to me it was like, oh wow, because people are always like, oh God, everybody in Utah is so different. It's nothing like Illinois, and I'm like, well, the difference is everybody in Illinois knows it's corrupt. Here, everyone pretends like it's not.
Well, so here's the thing, Goud, has dead people started voting in Utah yet? That may be the difference. When
Oh,
you dead
hashtag
vote, let
people,
me
I don't know.
know.
They might be. We can't see the whole voter rolls.
Oh, so you don't even know if you're dead or voting?
We have no idea. Yeah, and they mail everybody a ballot. So you have no idea. There could be dead people voting all over the place.
Oh, okay. Well, then we might be much more alike than I thought.
Yeah, yeah.
Our dead vote a lot, so.
Oh, yeah, I forget. That used to be the big joke, right?
Yeah,
My grandma died. She's voting Democrat now.
she is. You can't stop it either. So. But
Oh,
yes,
you know what? What was oh, so anyway, I was gonna say though, but that caucus convention system, it's where candidates can overcome name ID because money is not as important as actually you go and you try to get these delegates to vote for you. So it's very just like when I ran for county clerk, it was the hardest thing I've ever done. It was like this month-long or 2-month-long interview process where these delegates, they'll ask you like really tough questions. And but you know, I feel like it's a good system because in your case, someone without name might get through it because people learned about him and they're like, oh, this guy's really good. I don't know who he is, but now I do. And I've asked him all these questions. I think he'd do a better job.
Honestly, I think that's what happened. People recognize the name. I think more central Illinois is really into him because of the farmer thing, maybe, because you know that's where our farmland is. I'm not really sure, but he's not playing a new game though. That's what worries me. If he had a new strategy, I'd be more excited, but it seems like he's playing the same cards he played last time, which got him to lose.
Yeah.
So I don't get why we are doing this again. And he has an online presence, I guess. Like he'll like do some Twitter or Facebooky stuff, but nothing in person where people can actually see him talk.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a couple questions for you. Mr. Producer asked, do they have mail-in ballots in Illinois?
We do have mail-in ballots. That was a new thing that kind of came with like the 2020 election, I think, is when they did the mail-ins, because it keeps you safer because you wouldn't go get COVID at the ballot booth.
Right.
But you know, so that's when Illinois kind of, I think before mail-in was only for like military kind of things, and then now it became you can do that. I never quite figured it all out because there was a way you could like check on their website if someone requested a ballot for your name. And in the 2020 election, somebody requested a ballot in my name, but I couldn't find out who requested it. And it never got used because it will tell you if it got used or not. So I had to keep checking like every couple of days to make sure it wasn't used. And it never got used, but I didn't request it. So I don't know where it is. So yeah, I kind of just rather people go to the polls. I think that would be a lot better for Illinois, but you know, it's probably easier for the dead to vote from mail-in ballots too. So.
Oh yeah, totally.
Getting them to polls is really difficult. So
okay, so Caroline Teaches Math says, can you verify if he's on the fat shot?
I can't see. I didn't want to get sued, Caroline. That's why I did not say that. But it kind of looks like he might be. He hasn't got Ozempic face yet because I think we're still 100 pounds from that. But
yeah, he was a very fat man.
He's looking like he's slimming down. So I don't know what he's doing. I don't think it's.
I think he's going to run for president.
Well, I don't think he runs, but.
I'm not sure. Yeah, you're right. He doesn't run for anything, but I think he's going to contest for the presidency.
Yes. I think that's his goal, is to get elected here and then try to get the presidency. A lot of chitter chatter here about him being on the ticket with Newsom, like it could be a possibility. I don't know. You know, you can never predict all that chatter, but I think he's got his eye on that prize. So, and I think he might be trying to slim down. So if he does run for presidency, he looks a little better. I can't say he'll look handsome. That's a stretch, but a little better.
Yeah, at least not morbidly obese.
Yes. Well, that was one of my big beefs when we had the COVID, and he would come on TV every week and he would announce whether or not like the schools were going to open and stuff. So the only reason I was watching is because my daughter would she wanted to go back to school. So we watched it every Friday. He'd make an announcement at like 2 o'clock, and then she would cry because he wouldn't open the schools up. But he lectured a lot on health and the health of our kids while like visibly sweating from just doing the talking at the 5-minute press conference and looking quite out of breath. So I kind of was like, I don't want to take advice from you because you seem a little unhealthy. I'm not a doctor, but you might be a little unhealthy. You might have diabetes. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I struggle with that too. It's a lot of times people that look like they are sickly telling you how to live, and you're just like
telling you they're going to protect your health.
Yeah.
Well, not letting kids go to school, which my daughter cried every Friday because of that. And then he didn't open the schools for like a year and a half.
Man, and people are still going to vote him back. It's gross.
Well, yeah, and then they're putting it on TV. Him and his family went to Florida, and like there's pictures of his family vacationing on the beach, and we're like all locked up like rats in a cage. Like, and then he's telling you it's unhealthy to go outside. Yeah, and they even tried to Lightfoot was banning people from walking around the lakefront, like walking, jogging, or biking. I was like, so wait a minute, to stay healthy, we have to stop exercising outside by ourselves? Seems right. Don't bicycle anymore by yourself. COVID will get you on that moving bicycle.
Right. Okay, we got a few comments from Alex. He says,
Sure.
Why is she in the car? Is she in the ice cruiser she stole?
Oh, is this my Alex?
Yes, it's your Alex.
Oh, that's because sometimes people have jobs, Alex, and mine required me to stay a little late today. So I'm finishing up in my car because I didn't have time to get home. I will also return to work tomorrow to do another full day, if not more.
Thank you.
But don't worry, my tax dollars will give out free programs because I continue to go to work like a fool.
I know, seriously. I'm more and more like, why am I having to pay taxes if it all goes to fraud and illegal aliens? And then I feel like there's tons of people who don't even work and they're rich. And so I just feel like I'm a sucker at this point.
Well, sadly, Goud, when I added up what I make as a single person raising a child in Illinois, and then what you make if you just go on welfare and collect all the benefits, it equals out to about the same. That's my problem. I could like stay home with my kid and have a better life if I just stop the whole work thing. I'm not in my work car though. I am off right now in my personal car. It's just I couldn't be driving while talking to you to get home because that seemed like that would be dangerous and unhealthy.
Okay.
So I got in the parking lot.
Alex says, Goud, you and this illegal immigrant you're talking to have to be the two most boring women I've ever heard in my life.
What? Didn't I challenge him to do a debate? Where's my debate, Alex? You just chime in.
Oh yeah, yes. We should do that debate.
Yeah, with parameters, and we're gonna limit you to a minute apiece.
Okay. Alex, are you up for it? I know you're commenting. Then he says, oh, I think he's talking about your mail-in ballot. He said, it was me, Brandy. I requested the ballot in your name. That's how I proved illegal immigrants are voting in Illinois.
I bet you did. I bet that was you. It never got filled out because you probably don't know how to read.
There you go.
You didn't even send it in right, Alex. You did all that work and you messed up.
Oh, and then Caroline teaches math says, speaking of not working, I'm looking at Bluin. There's this guy named Nate Bluin who's running for Congress as a Democrat in our new congressional District 1. And he's literally never had a real job in his whole life. He's 36.
Like, that doesn't stop you, Goud. You get to be the mayor of New York and never have a job. I mean, well, a rapper partially, but you don't need jobs to run things. Isn't the lady in Seattle who also is the mayor of Seattle, didn't she not have a job? And she was living like at her parents' house?
Right, yeah.
You don't need jobs to know finances and how to balance a budget.
Yeah, and Nate Bluin, actually, he gave an interview where he was like extolling how he was on Snap. And I was like, you are a man who you have no children. And essentially, I think he went on Snap so he could ski and smoke pot or something and find himself. And then after he leached off of taxpayers, he found some poor woman to marry him. And now she works and he doesn't work. Except he's a state senator. So somehow people were like, oh, I can relate to you because I work and you don't have a job. But somehow I think that you're going to be able to understand how I'm struggling with things because your wife provides for you and you're a kept man. I don't know.
For a moment there, I thought you were talking about one of our old childhood friends. Didn't we have a pot smoking skier who lived in Colorado?
Yes. But I think he works.
Somebody we used to know.
I know, but he works. That's the thing, right? Like, and he's not running for office. So
no, he's not. So probably didn't he get banned from Colorado for stealing skis while high?
I don't remember. That might be right. There was something weird.
That might be why he can't run for office.
Let's see. So Alex said, "I'm not a stamp licker, unlike some people. That's why it never got mailed in." I don't think they usually require stamps, Alex. They're usually
Aren't they prepaid postage?
They are, yeah.
Because Alex, if it's not prepaid postage, the poor people can't vote. Hello.
It's a poll tax.
It is a poll tax. Oh my goodness. And then now I'm going to go find my birth certificate so I can vote. Oh my God. And I'm too stupid.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, you got anything else for us from Illinois? Any reports about any excitement?
I was a little short on time today because of that work thing, Goud, but I was going to talk about they're trying to propose some sort of bill that will charge a hefty fee if you want to FOIA the cameras from the police, the body cams. They're working on that. I don't know if it's going to pass. If it does, it'll go into effect January of 2027. But I guess so many people are FOIAing the body cam footage that they're saying it's costly and they want to start charging a fee. Typically, when you FOIA, they don't charge you a fee because it's your right to know what your police department's doing or your government agency's doing. And for those who don't know, FOIA's Freedom of Information Act. You can fill out a form with any of your PDs to get information, but apparently they want to charge a hefty fee for the body cam footage, which they say is because it's costly, but then you have a bunch of people who say, well, that's because every time they release it, it actually doesn't do the criminals or the other side any good. It's actually better if you don't release it because it's not really proven their point, so they're going to make it more difficult to get it. So I got to kind of see where that goes, because if it passes, we're looking at January.
Yeah, Mr. Producer says in Utah you have to pay for, we call it grandma here, requests here. Sometimes they'll give it to you for free, but I will say that when they don't want you to have something, they'll charge you a fee. That's like their kind of go-to.
I think ours is after a certain amount or 70, like 100 pages or something, you get a fee, but it's usually like $2 or something. I guess they want to make it a lot higher to discourage you from requesting it, is my understanding. But I need to do a little bit of a deeper dive. I think it's a new thing they just kind of threw out there. So I'll be interested in seeing, because I kind of predicted the body cam thing would not go well when they were like, they thought they were going to get all this footage of like police just beating people and doing all kinds of awful stuff. And in reality, you just got a lot of footage of people doing awful things and the police being mostly patient.
Yeah, right.
Overly patient, where you're like, oh my God, I want to beat that person. And the cop is just being super nice. So I think that whole thing backfired. And I mean, if you look around, we haven't had as many like protests for police brutality as we did a few years ago. And I think that's because, cameras help. Yep.
No, I think you're 100% right that the cameras did not work out like they thought it would.
No. Yeah. So now I think they want to make it super pricey to get the footage. So that way it's harder for people to see it. Because, I mean, well, if you notice, like the whole debate about protesters getting killed and stuff, cameras is really kind of what pieced everything together. I mean, you were able to see what happened through cell phone footage, body cam footage. It all kind of comes together, and then you kind of see what really happens. And it's never quite as you've been told,
Yep.
So, but I will keep my eye on that, and we'll see if that happens. But that was the only new thing I saw this week over in Illinois. So.
Okay. Well, we will have you back on soon. Thank you for
Yes,
the update.
I would like to be on for the debate with Alex. Wherever you are, Alex, chime in.
Okay,
Let's
and
do
we will get
this.
that set up because I do think that would be valuable for people to see kind of the opposite
You
viewpoints.
pick the place, time, the topic, and let's do a real one where Goud has to moderate, so that way we each have a chance to speak. Because I never get a chance to speak when he's on; he just yells at me.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Brandy.
All right, bye, you guys.
Bye. Okay, let's see here. We got another comment. Caroline teaches math says, so now poor people can't FOIA. I know. That's the result. That's what happens with that. Okay, so let me see. I have this. I don't think, did I get to talk about this? This is where I was going. So this was just back on the topic of the voter records and stuff like that. This is something I missed the last time I was looking at this. If you look at the citizenship review that the Lieutenant Governor's office did, she actually notes at the beginning that they did a first pass between April and August of 2025 where 39,292 voter records were purged because they didn't have a driver's license number or a social security number. How is this not bigger news? Now, she went into the press and said that there were no illegal aliens voting and there was only one non-citizen on the voter rolls. But we don't know what that almost 40,000 voter records looks like. How did people register to vote without providing a social security number or a driver's license number? I would like to know that. The other thing is that I'd also like to know which clerks were involved in approving these registration forms and what sort of a citizenship check did you do? I would just assume that a lot of these people are not citizens because how do you not have a driver's license or a social security number? That doesn't make any sense to me. And so I think there's more questions to be had here. Okay, so I think that kind of wraps up what I want to talk about on this part. Let me just look and see what I had. Okay, before we have Jen Garner on, and she'll be on at 6:30, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of Celeste Malloy's voting record because I'm having some, I've been kind of digging through this and she's got some really problematic positions for a Republican in Utah. So let me just start with this. I was listening to her town hall. She had a town hall and she talked about doing earmarks. And so earmarks are when legislators they will direct money towards particular projects. They've changed the name though, so they're using euphemisms because earmarks, nobody thinks they're good. So they've changed it to community project funding. And in the FY26 omnibus bill, she had about $42 million of earmarks. And it was kind of interesting because she says that Ron Paul actually used to advocate that the entire budget should be earmarked, that you should not pass budgetary items that then allow unelected bureaucrats to dole the money out. Now, conceptually, I see the point, right? Most government employees, especially at the federal level, although I would say probably at the state level as well, tend to be Democrats. And so if you have a Republican Congress and a Republican president, and then you pass a budget, let's say, saying they can spend $100 million on grant money, when you have Democrat employees making the decisions, even if you lay out parameters, they will probably aim that money at Democrat causes. So I get it. Now, my argument would be, I think that you should actually cut that type of budgeting because, frankly, the federal government is running trillion plus budget deficits. We're heading towards a financial crisis, and all of that money printing causes inflation. Apparently, nobody ever wants to make a tough decision on we just have to actually cut spending at some point, and we'll all be better off, to be honest with you. If you're someone that actually works for a living, or even if you're someone on fixed income, so like a Social Security recipient or you're on your pension, you would be better off if the federal government spent less money and got rid of its deficit. Because if you're on a fixed income, the deficit is driving inflation and you will never be able to keep up with that. If you are on if you're working, like I am, or like most of you probably are, then all of your expenses are constantly skyrocketing, and they're galloping, I think, at rates that are higher than how much your income will go up every year. And that's a problem. And that's something that there's no fix for it, except that you got to stop spending money. That's just it. And then also, like, the federal money is also it is putting a floor under prices in a lot of industries. So just as an example, because of Section 8 and then other subsidies that go to apartment buildings, I think rent prices are not falling as much as they should, right? Because again, the federal government, state governments do it too. They come in with all these subsidies for people, and they set floors under what the rental rates are. If we got rid of those, rents would fall more and they'd be more affordable for everybody. And the reason that your elected officials like these types of programs is they can pick and choose who they want to give the money to, instead of just making life affordable for everybody. So that would be my argument for actually just cutting the budget. Caroline Teaches Math says, Malloy and Moore voted to fund the National Endowment for Democracy. It is interesting that you bring that up, because that's like a slush fund, right, for these Democrat NGOs. And the argument is that money has been used to do a color revolution in the US. So it's actually supposed to be used, I think, to promote democracy overseas. It ends up doing color revolutions. And then also destabilizing, governments around the world. And I don't know that that's actually made anything better. If someone can point to me a country that has been improved because we have funded nonprofits to go there and meddle in their affairs, I would love to see it. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. All I know is that we seem to be using our money to spread instability all around the world. And then we have to import all the people that are, start moving around because of it. And so we end up with millions of people that don't even like us living in the country with us, trying to destroy us. It's a very unfortunate situation. Okay, it looks like Jennifer Garner is here. So maybe we'll go ahead and start early since she's here. And we'll come back to my topic later. Okay. Hey, Jen, how are you?
Good. How are you? You don't have to stop. I was just listening in.
Oh, it's okay. If you're here, let's talk. I'm excited to have you here. So you came on really early, so I don't want you to have to sit there.
No, it's always a good time. So I was okay listening.
Oh, okay. Well, then do you want to start at 6:30? It's up to you.
It's up to you. You call it. I'll
Okay. Well, why don't we say do 6:30? Because I did tell people you'd be on at 6:30, and I want people to be able to, if they're going to tell people to tune in, right? We want to get maximum exposure.
I'm good. I'm just going to listen in. Thanks, Tab.
Okay, cool. We'll have her back in a minute, guys. Thank you. Okay. Alex wants me to know my makeup is terrible. Well, I don't have any makeup on, so that's fine. That's for okay. So anyway, and then he also says, no, that's not true. The problem isn't Section 8. It's the luxury apartments that sit unoccupied and still serve as tax breaks for companies like BlackRock. No, it's really not. From a broad-based perspective, all of these subsidies, again, they set floors under pricing. And so if you got rid of it, you would have price drops much bigger than what we're seeing right now. You'd even see it in food too. Grocery prices are also driven up by food stamps. And so, you have to kind of figure out, though, that you have to balance this and figure out how to do it. And I don't have a great answer for how to do it. But the reality is that anyway, the point is subsidies actually set floors under prices. That's how it works. Then Alex says, this show is a mess. Oh, okay, thanks. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to share it. Okay, let me continue on my point here. So anyway, so she did this thing where she justified, Celeste justified using earmarks. And so my issue, though, with earmarks is that I can understand the point that you're trying to direct funding towards particular projects in your district. The drawback is that you then have to turn around and support other people's earmarks. And you're going to have to support them even if there are things that you or your voters oppose. And so this brings us to something called the Norman Amendment. And this was an earmark in So in 2026, they passed an omnibus bill, and one of them was for labor and then health and human services, right? And so that has a bunch of earmarks in it because there's a lot of legislators, I can't even talk, who do earmarks, and they all have money that is set aside inside of these different bills. So she voted against this Norman Amendment. And what the Norman Amendment would have done is it would have stripped all the earmarks out of that part of the omnibus bill. But if you're also, and she didn't have any earmarks in this part of the bill. So stripping out all the earmarks would not have actually impacted her earmarks directly. But the problem is, if you actually have earmarks yourself somewhere else, you're going to protect other people's earmarks, because otherwise what those people will do is they'll come after your earmarks in the other bill, right? And so just to put a fine point on this, so you understand why I think it's important, she ended up voting against the Norman Amendment and not stripping these earmarks from that part of the omnibus bill. And that meant that she spent, or she approved essentially, over $13 million to go to pediatric gender clinics, $5 million for embryonic stem cell cloning. So that requires the creation and destruction of life. So if you're pro-life, that should be a problem for you. $375,000 for something called the Jacob's Pillow Dance Festival, which has all this DEI included in it. So because of her position on earmarks and her desire to use them, she is now out there supporting things that I don't think people in Utah support. In fact, I know they don't. I 100% know they don't. With pediatric gender clinics, we had one here. It's shut down. Okay, the University of Utah had a pediatric gender clinic. They were, or I think this might have been adolescent, but whatever it was, they were doing transgender surgeries on minors there. Removing the breasts from girls who were suffering from gender dysphoria, giving kids puberty blockers. We shut that down. We don't support this kind of stuff. So if you're going as a legislator or congressman or woman from Utah and you're voting for things like this, you're voting for things that are directly in opposition to the values and the policies that Utahns support. And I think that's a problem. That's the problem, right? Because of her position on earmarks, now she's stuck having to support these earmarks that do not reflect the values of her voters. And she's kind of, like the reality is that she's a very good talker. I've seen her talk. She'll just kind of talk her way out of stuff. But I think these votes are really problematic, and I hope people pay attention to them. Now, I think she's kind of admitted that this fits with her viewpoint on how legislating works. So I'll play you this little clip from a town hall she did that I found to be interesting. Here we go.
Prefers the process of trying to get legislation done over. Malloy said inside that she prefers the process of trying to get legislation done over being fixated on outcomes.
And so that's the point, right? And Chris Reed's actually a very good reporter down in St. George. So she told him, I'm not worried about the outcome. I'm trying to get legislation done. So she's trying to get her earmarks passed. And she had, I think I told you what was like $42 million of earmarks in that bill. In other parts of the bill, then she's actually, she's worried about those earmarks over the outcome, the overall outcome. But the overall outcome is actually not good if you're a conservative. In fact, it's really problematic. Let's see. Now, the other thing is, I did have some problems with how she talks about ICE agents. So let me see if I can find this. I had a little bit of a short prep time today because I was working on a brief, but this is my life. So let's see if we can. I don't know if this is going to pull up. Is the only problem. Okay, we'll let this play. And because in this, she talks about ICE agents, and I thought she talked about, Alex says, let's see, he says two things. We'll come back to your other comment, Alex, but more than 5 million also went to abortion providers. So again, let's just put this, let's make this really clear. She voted to allow federal money to go to pediatric transgender clinics and to abortion providers. If you are a conservative in Utah, I don't know how you reconcile supporting her with those types of votes. And that's what I think is problematic. And I think it's indisputable that Phil Lyman would be a much better representative of Utah values than she is. And some of it might be that, like I said earlier, she's not really from Utah. And I think she's one of these that wants to be in power. And, I get it. Some people are like that. But here, okay, let me play you this part of the clip. Okay, I can't hear this woman talking.
This whole administration, and I think she should do her job and do something.
Of course, it's freezing.
Malloy said inside that she prefers the process of trying to get legislation done over being fixated on outcomes.
We have a mantra on our team. I always remind my staff, calm and nerdy. That's our brand. We're calm, we're nerdy, we give people good information, we don't fly off the handle. I do represent downtown Salt Lake City, and I spend a lot of time in Salt Lake City and West Valley City, which are traditionally more Democrat strongholds in Utah. But I do take that seriously. I belong to the Republican Party. I believe in the Republican platform, but I represent a lot of people who are not part of the party, and I'm doing my best to make sure I represent people who disagree with me.
From St. George, Chris Street, Fox 13 News.
Why did she say this thing?
Of what government should do is not kill its own citizens. So a lot of you are here because you're really upset about what's happening in Minnesota. I'm also upset about what's happening in Minnesota. My general baseline of what government should do is not kill its own citizens. And so we've got to do an investigation. We've got to get to the bottom of what's happening.
Okay. I don't have an issue with saying you should do an investigation, okay? But I will say that I have a problem with saying that ICE agents are killing people when in the two examples that they have, when you dig into it, one of them is very clear, right? The woman is driving into the ICE agent. You don't get to do that. A vehicle is a dangerous weapon, and any law enforcement officer, actually any individual, if you try to drive your car into them, they have every right to shoot you and kill you. That's self-defense. The other one I think could use an investigation, because I think what's happening is when these ICE agents were going into cities, as they should, the left was coming in and they have all these people going and causing chaos. They're interfering with their operations, and they're actually creating a situation that leads to mistakes happening. It's possible in the second situation with that pretty guy that a mistake happened, and you can investigate that, but I don't think there's anything criminal there. Again, the problem is if you understand situations like that, when you start to interfere with operations, when you start to create chaos like that, mistakes will happen and people are going to die. And the better thing that should have happened is that everyone that was doing that should have been prosecuted. They should have been thrown in jail, and the problem should have been handled. And on that, I criticize the Trump administration. I actually don't think they did a good job of shutting that down. I have problems with her comments because it continues a pattern by Celeste of attacking conservatives. And I think most of these ICE agents are probably conservatives, and they're doing a great job in the face of left-wing terrorism that the administration hasn't handled properly. So when you look at that and you look at her automatic assumption is, oh, well, you shouldn't murder people. Well, self-defense isn't murder. Okay, like those ICE agents aren't there because they want to murder Americans. Actually, they're defending themselves from being constantly attacked, which you're not doing anything about. Why don't you help fix the problem? You're in Congress and all these people, so you're busy getting your earmarks. You're not actually busy doing the things that people voted for you to do. Like actually get the job done. Alex says, our Congresswoman from Northern Virginia. Accurate. Like I said, she does not live here. Okay, so let's see what else I got here. That was my part about her. I had, and then, and I just want to say this is my general comment, which I had made before, is that I do not think that you should vote for people who are closeted homosexuals. And I'm not going to say who I think are closeted homosexuals, because I think there's a lot of them in Utah who run for office. And I actually think we should demand that they are out of the closet. The problem is, if you are closeted, then you are easily blackmailable, right? And that's the concern, because obviously I'm gay, I've run for office. I don't think there's an issue with that. I think the problem is when you're closeted, people then can then blackmail you. A good example of that, I think, is Lindsey Graham, although I'm not really sure that his warmongering is because he's a closet case and is being, blackmailed, or if he just really, really gets turned on by war. So maybe he's not the best example, but I think generally Utahns tend to just believe people when they tell you that they're hetero. That Ben McAdams one was kind of an example of that, right? He sounds like a big old queen. So, when you hear someone like that, you should be asking the question, like, are you gay? I don't know. Maybe you are. Maybe we should figure this out. Because the problem is he'll go to Congress and then you don't know what people will have on him because of shady stuff in his background. It's kind of the Kristi Noem situation in a way as well, right? I think that was the issue. I don't know that I care that her husband was wearing big boobs and doing weird stuff like that, except that, again, it makes her blackmailable. So, because then she's having an affair with Corey Lewandowski, when in reality, she probably just should have gotten a divorce from her husband and then just, lived her life without him around. I think that's kind of your situation. Okay. So maybe, why don't we just, I'm trying to think if I have anything else I really want to talk about today. Oh, immigration. Hold on. Okay. I did have something I want to show you guys, because I will just tell you. So Alex says, it's better to sound like a queen than a moron. You'll just have to trust me on that one. Okay. I will trust you. What if you're both a queen and a moron? Okay. So here's the thing. With immigration, okay, illegal immigration is only one part of this, but actually legal immigration is a big problem too. And so you can kind of see how they're attacking our ability to make a living on every level, right? And you see this in Utah if you're paying attention. So illegal immigration is being used to undermine the opportunities and wages for working class Utahns. Our construction industry is full of illegals. I mean, it's there. I hardly ever see Americans working in it anymore. And then if you go to, so that's kind of your working class side. If you go into stores, tons of illegals working in stores now. All of the jobs are being taken by illegals with these kind of what you would call unskilled labor, right? At the skilled level, because then what they'll tell you is you should go to college and then you'll be able to get a good job. Well, at the skilled level, they have all these H-1Bs that are coming in here and they're taking all the jobs. And something like, I think the number is 85% of them come from India. And a lot of them actually, there's whole buildings in India full of old people whose kids have all left for the United States. And I know this because my parents have told me about it in the city that they're from, which is Hyderabad. So here, let's listen a little bit of.
No students here. No, I was told on good authority there may be some
I'm going to get
employees here being paid under the table illegal rates. Is that true or false? This is Argyle, Texas, a tiny semi-rural Texas suburb where Indians are seemingly.
Okay. These videos are worth a watch so that you can understand better how legal immigration is being used to flood the United States. Because at the skilled level, there's H-1B visas that come in. So I think the cap is 180,000 per year, but universities are exempt from the cap. And that's why you see universities putting out notices and hiring H-1B visas. On top of that, student visas have an unlimited ability to convert to what's called an OPT. It's the optional practical training, which then they can use to convert into H-1Bs, or there's another visa program, the number I can't remember. And so we have our graduates are having to compete against millions of foreigners to get jobs. And I saw a report that there are at least 6 million H-1B holders in the US right now. Plus, their spouses can get a spousal visa that allows them to do any job. And the spousal visa that they get is actually from a regulation through DHS. Now, it's my view that we need to cancel all of these programs. So H-1B needs to be canceled. We don't need it. And all the H-1Bs need to be sent home. Their spousal visa should be canceled. And that could be canceled actually through the budgetary process by just defunding it. Because again, it was a regulation put out by DHS. It is not statutory. So Congress could do that today if they wanted to. They won't, but they should do that. And then with student visas, they should ban the ability to convert them into any sort of immigration status. So once you graduate, you need to go home. Like, I don't want people coming here and then taking jobs from Americans and stealing opportunities from American kids. And it's interesting because I've seen this even in my own family, kind of a view of, we know people that have come here on H-1B visas and then, you know, over time have become citizens and whatnot. But even people like that are beginning to recognize that their own children who are Americans are growing up and they're going to have to compete against H-1Bs from India. And they're realizing this is not tenable. It doesn't work. The tech industry is completely full of H-1Bs from India. So someone added to the stream. I don't know who this is. Is it you, Mr. Producer? That's kind of weird. Okay. Hold up. There we go. Okay. Anyway, so the whole point is we need to get legal immigration is a big issue. And if we're going to have any sense of a nation, keep in mind that none of these people ever have to go and fight for the country. We send our best and brightest into the military. We see, here's the thing. Alex and I disagree about some of this stuff, but here's what he says. They shouldn't give out student visas. I actually agree with that. They give them preference at elite schools, then say Americans aren't skilled, educated enough to take good paying jobs. Yeah, exactly. 100%. I agree with that. I wish we could get there, but our colleges have turned into immigration mills. That's the reality of all of this. And so I would just tell people, you need to look at immigration as a broader level. It's not just illegal immigration that's a problem. It's legal immigration too. We need a moratorium on immigration, and then we need to deport all the illegals, get rid of the H-1Bs, stop the student visas. We don't need all this stuff. We need to focus on our own people. And to the point of what Alex is saying in terms of the unskilled piece, the military can take a high school graduate off the street and train him or her to be a Black Hawk pilot, to run a nuclear submarine, to do amazing feats. You see some of this going on with that Iran war, right? I mean, these special operators, many of whom don't have college degrees, going in and doing an amazing just rescue mission of an American hero, right? Like, that's the type of stuff, when you see it, you're like, wow, this is badass. And then they'll tell you, Amazon will be like, well, those same people are not skilled enough to work in our company. And you're like, what do you mean? How are they not skilled enough to do that? Like, you could train people. You can train people to do these jobs. That's the reality of it. And actually, if you talk to Indians who come here on H-1Bs and they're honest with you, they typically don't have the skills needed to do those jobs either. They're just trained by the Indians who came from before them. The whole thing is a racket. It's a racket and a scam, and we need to end it. So, I mean, if you're looking for Congress people, I would also say you need to ask them about this. Protect your own children and their opportunities by going and asking the Congress people if they're willing to go and get rid of the H-1Bs, the H-2As, the H-2Bs, all the temporary visa programs, to force employers to hire and invest in Americans. And if your company just can't live without an illegal immigrant or cheap, compliant immigrant labor, then go out of business. I honestly do not care. I'll just be totally honest with you. Let's see, Jen Garner just put something here. Okay. Okay, let me sit back. Oh, Caroline teaches math, says Hyderabad. That's where my parents are from. is the most surveilled city in the world per Visual Capitalist. Oh, is it Hyderabad, India, or is it Hyderabad, Pakistan? There's a Hyderabad in both cities, both countries. That surprises me because I haven't been to India in a while, but the last time I went, it is completely a chaotic place. So I don't know what you would even surveil there. Like when I say chaotic, I mean it is nutty, chaotic, crazy place, crazy town. You know, just like cows on the street. Although fewer cows on the street than when I was a kid. And then I just realized I'm not sharing my email with you guys. Luckily, I just showed links. Okay. Here, let's go. We'll get Jen on. Okay, let's have Jen on. Okay, well, we're close enough, so let's start. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Very good. Very good.
Why
don't you introduce yourself? Because a lot of people probably don't know who you are.
Okay, so my name is Jennifer Garner. I'm running for Senate District 7. I have a master's. I'm a mom. I've been on the State Central Committee with Goud. Goud and I were on the Audit Committee last term. I'm on my second term where we, it's the nerds of the Republican Party, but we like the rules. Like we think that tightening our rules helps us be better Republicans. And I'm a fiscal conservative. I teach financial literacy in higher ed, so it's supposed to be this political free position, but it's not. And thanks so much for having me here.
Yeah. Okay. So you're running against really, I think, probably the most powerful legislator in Utah. And so I'm wondering, talk about how that race is going and how delegates are responding.
It has been very surprising. I've had a lot of people come out of the woodwork and offer a lot of evidence to decisions that probably shouldn't have been made, a lot of conflicts of interest. People sent me the article on, KUER that was about Senator Adams suing his brother over property.
Okay.
I think when you get that high up and then you turn off all of the social media where people can respond to you, I think it comes to a point where he might not be listening and thinks he knows best. And that doesn't represent me. So I'm running to represent not just Senate District 7, but I believe that across the state, senators can't represent their communities because my senator tells them how to vote.
Yeah, talk about that, because I've actually heard about this I've heard about it from representatives and from senators that Senator Adams actually has, or President Adams has, a very tight leash on bills, and that if you cross him, all your bills will be killed. But let me talk more about that.
Well, and we kind of saw that there were a few bills that Trevor Lee had this last legislative session. And I think that shutting out Trevor Lee's bills that are supposed to be deliberated, right? Like if they were awful bills, then they could have been deliberated in committee and then on the floor, but they were shut down. So I think that's just indicative of that. But it's the bills that we don't see that indicate what he has control over. This horse trading, I think, is bad culture, just like you were talking about with Celeste, is they pass bad bills to get their good bills passed. And I don't think that that's representative of Utah. I think that that it's the body that's supposed to set the good example about having good arguments, having great debate, and then the good ideas rise to the top, and that's what moves forward. And it also is supposed to come to a halt when there's crappy legislation coming about. One of the things that really woke me up post-COVID, which woke me up anyway, was in 2023. I'm not sure if you shared this one earlier on X, but there was an AP article that came out and said, hey, Utah, your senators have been, they have, like, a lot of their influence comes from China. And it was It wasn't for very much money. And I think they've switched the article a little bit, but essentially it's saying that China has influence on Utah senators. And so I kind of thought, well, that's probably not true. So I popped over to le.utah.gov and I did a search for China, and it's buried differently now. So if you search for Liaoning, China, or just Liaoning, Liaoning, this is our sister city in China. In 2016, there was a Senate concurrent resolution passed commemorating our 10-year partnership, our relationship with our sister city. And I think right there, partnership in tourism, trade, science, and education, as well as legislative and cultural exchange. So first of all, trade, they discussed $50 million, or China investing $50 million into Utah. I'd like to know what that was for.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Science, I'm curious how we have collaborated on that. And in education, this is when the dual immersion schools started, the Chinese dual immersion, which I think is great. It's great to learn another language, but I think they had, it was in the news that the students in the dual immersion schools their pen pal was Xi Jinping, and they called him Grandpa, and he was his pen pal, kind of okaying everybody, preparing everybody for the Chinese Communist Party. Anyway, and then legislative. This made my jaw drop, because what legislation have we taken from China? Would this be the legislation that mandated water meters on everybody's secondary water, and these meters were made in China and they're Wi-Fi capable? So I just have a lot of questions about that. And they also, in this video, it talks about how a delegation came from Liaoning one year, and then the next year a delegation went over, and so every other year they've kind of traded off. And the last thing that I could find in public record was from 2020, where they talked about opening a museum for Chinese something or other. So it's just concerning that this kind of, like, what other legislation came from China? I think we have a right to know. I think we have a right to know who's influencing what decisions our senators are making. So
okay, that's interesting. Have you been able to get any sort of answers from anybody, or have you asked anyone what legislation they got from China?
Well, if you put on your Chinese glasses and look through the lens, you kind of can, there's things in there, right, that we can absolutely see that, that our education, I think that our inland port had a lot to do with.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So there's things that are not rosy colored, but as far as getting any feedback, I've tagged President Adams on almost all of my posts, and he has his page set up where no one can. Well, I can't make a comment under his, so I have to repost it, and that's the same way it is on other platforms. So I don't think he really wants to hear from us, or wants to hear any questions either, which is concerning, because how do you represent if you don't ask questions?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. One of my concerns, and I know I've talked to you about this, is that case with his granddaughter raping the 13-year-old, and then I believe that he abused his office in terms of trying to get her a lighter sentence. And I'm just wondering, maybe talk about whether delegates have concerns about that case and what happened with that.
So it's interesting to see the delegates' response. Some of them don't want to hear anything negative. They just want to hear about what I will do, which is fine, because in 2017, there was legislation that redefined a peer group from 2 years to 3 years. So this would be like if there's two kids under 18 and they're doing married people stuff, and and they're within 2 years, right? Then
Yeah.
it's considered, hey, you're within your peer. There's probably not any intimidation or whatever else going on. However, they in 2017 they changed it to 3 years, and then in 2024 they changed, or 2025 they changed it from 3 years to 4 years. So had they left this other stuff in law, had they left the 2 years in, someone that was doing inappropriate things, that was sodomizing someone that was 4 years younger, this could have been resolved before hitting adult years. And then this other legislation to bend the rules for one student wouldn't have been an issue because it would have been caught sooner. And I think we need to go back to that. If there's that kind of behavior, especially object rape, breathe, then we should be catching it and addressing those behaviors while they are minors, instead of setting them up in a trap, and then the only people that get away with it are the ones that have really powerful family members in office. I don't think that that's right.
Yeah. Okay. See, one of the issues I have is that he submitted a letter in support of his granddaughter getting a lighter sentence with the court. I have emailed him multiple times asking for a copy of that letter, because his claim is, we passed this legislation, it was only prospective and it had no impact on the case, but I want to know what's in the letter. Like, what did you put in this letter? And have you been able to get a copy of the letter? Has there been any attempts to get a copy of that letter?
No, but to say Voldemort, who shall not be named. So Brian Schott must have got a copy of the letter, because he made a post that said that Senator Adams said it came from a place of inclusion, like that the granddaughter wanted to include this 12-year-old. And I think that that's grooming. I think it sets a bad precedent for identifying abuse. I think I also shared that on X. I don't know if it's still up or if it got flagged as too as too much, but it was but I think it was Brian Schott who shared a meme of it.
Interesting.
Yeah, a place of inclusion. That's a place of inclusion. Let's let 18-year-olds. So I have a son who turned 18 shortly after his senior year started. And before that senior year, I told him, you can't do stupid stuff anymore. And we're not talking that kind of awful stuff. We're just talking, stupid stuff. And I said, when you guys get caught, or when you guys do something stupid, you're the one that's going to be charged as an adult, and all your friends won't. So you have to be the better example. You have to set behaviors that aren't going to land, that are, you set better examples. That's it. And that's how we prepare our children for turning 18 and turning into adults. We don't help them by taking away the structure of law and expectations and help. That's just not how we keep the majority of students safe. And I that one was a big concern for me.
Yeah, part of what bothered me about it, and this might be like my own personal little bugaboo, but the way that they portrayed the boy was, first of all, when you read through it, he was traumatized by what happened, because I think he's probably LDS. He probably was expecting to wait until marriage. And I think when you are raised that way and you actually have, there's trauma that comes with that, right? Like, oh, I just broke my vows with God and look what I did, kind of a thing. And then also the way they portrayed him was like, his family is broken. His mom has problems. He's from a working class family. And I just found a lot of that to be like, it was like insult to injury.
Yeah.
And I had some real problems with it. So
I agree. And I don't care what religion someone grows up as. This is not okay. It's not okay. Whether they thought it was all right or even wanted to feel included, because 12 is still a time when our kids need protection, not bending laws so that abuse continues to go on for years, and then when somebody turns 18, it finally stops and then gets blasted. I don't think it's fair to the granddaughter, even though that was some awful stuff. I think that this is a family failure that should have been handled before it hit the courts and before it really hurt someone for that period of time.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. So I guess what would be different about you as a senator compared to President Adams? If you win, it's a huge change in terms of the composure of the Senate and how it's governed. So, like, what should they be looking for?
Well, I think the biggest concern people have is they think that the representation of District 7 has power across the state. Well, what has he done with that influence? Has he represented District 7 better? I think he's represented himself really well. I think he's locked down the whole rest of the state, but Davis County isn't Washington County. We're not Weber County. We're not Salt Lake County. And again, it comes down to, how do you get to the best decisions and the best laws when you're not even willing to one, ask for data, and two, listen to people. So I am huge on data-driven decisions. I think that there's compassion and empathy that needs to come along with that, but I'm going to listen. I don't ever think that I know everything. I have contacts on different sides of the aisle that I'll listen to, but then it doesn't necessarily mean that I make a decision in the middle if a more conservative decision will protect more people. I think the proper role of government, we need to get back to that. I think USAID, we have our own version of USAID right here in Utah. The link that I sent you was transparent.utah.gov. And if you just do a search under the the governments, did it list it?
Hold on. This one doesn't list. Let me look at the next one.
Okay. Yeah, if you just pop under governments and then do a search for vendor payments.
Here?
Yeah, like it's not going to pull up at the very oh yeah, and then put in immigration.
I searched for Equality Utah before. What did you want me to search for?
Just pop in immigration. Okay. And scroll down, and it goes from 2009, but if you'll hit the little caret next to year, it'll flip it the other direction. It'll sort it from newest to oldest. This is taxpayer funds paying immigration attorneys.
For what?
I think this is for the H-1B visas.
Oh my God.
For sponsorship of international non-citizens. Yeah, I think this is kind of concerning to me as well. So this is one of my favorite websites. Whenever I have a question, I'm like, ooh, what happens here? And then I pop in and figure out, oh, is this our own version of USAID? If you type in foundation, there's a ton of money going to foundations that hate our guts, that hate Utah, that think we're too conservative, that push the things that you talked about earlier, like the National Endowment for Democracy. Mm-hmm. So I think we have those things on our own level. It needs to be made public. I mean, this is public, great, right? But people aren't even asking for this, going in and pulling this data. But I think this is concerning. Like if you go a couple, like Tooele County paying $38,940 in 2025. Well, what was that for?
I'd want to know. So just the Wasatch Immigration Project, this is a group that provides services to asylum seekers, victims of domestic violence, trafficking, and other serious crimes, and minors who are unaccompanied or have suffered abuse, abandonment, or neglect. And so this is for obviously immigrants. My problem here is that I have clients who are Americans who are being abused by in this case leftists. They don't get free legal services. Like, why are non-citizens get free legal services, but I can't even get the same thing for my clients that are actual Americans who have paid taxes all their lives and work hard and just can't afford to pay an attorney because I make more than they do. But just well,
this is taxpayer funded. Anything that comes out of Transparent Utah is taxpayer funded. So the argument is, if we don't have Utahns that are educated enough for these positions, then we need to look at education, not bringing in people like there. What is the core issue, right? Is the core issue that we don't have enough people working for Park City and Summit? I don't know what that one is. Or is that the issue? Or is the issue that our education system isn't preparing our own students for these kinds of jobs?
Oh, yeah. Here Olson immigration law is actually those types of visas. Here, let me show you. I just pulled them up. So they're doing, you got H1, F1, O1. So but I think you're making the right point that a lot of times we're making up for the failures in our education system by importing people instead of educating our own people. If that's even true, I'll just add, right. I have a little bit of a deeper knowledge of this because I know people that have worked with H-1Bs, and a lot of times they don't even have the skills. There is kind of clan and caste, India has a caste system where people in those systems will work together and they will train the new people that come over with the skills that they need, which to me automatically means an American could have been trained and probably would have done a better job.
Right. And how has it affected? Like, the cost of living has gone way up, right? Especially with housing, especially with all the subsidies that we're giving developers, which is the incremental financing, the taxpayer incentives is just completely insane. Yes, God bless Tina Canada. So I wonder though if it's the right. We're not even looking at the right solution. I think that you're right on that.
Yeah, that's okay. So fascinating. So I guess, would you have a different view of immigration? So to the extent that governments are using H-1Bs in Utah. So I know universities use them a lot of times, and they're not even subject to the cap that we have. If Tooele is using them, if North San Pete is using them. As a senator, would you take efforts to restrict the ability of governments in Utah to use H-1Bs?
Well, I think that specifically the government entities, we should be steering away from this, because a lot of what I'm seeing is the students that are studying, it's like at my university, are studying computer science and cybersecurity. So we're educating people who don't live in the United States about our cybersecurity. That's concerning to me. If a private company wants to pay these costs, wants to pay for, immigration attorneys and the sponsorship fees, that I think is a completely separate issue. But as far as government entities, where the taxpayers are, first of all, being hurt because they're not being able to get into those positions themselves.
Yeah.
Second of all, the business owners that can't compete because they won't hire people under the table. I think that there's an economy there that we're cutting off our own feet for, and then wondering why people can't keep up with inflation when there's a lot of people getting paid for jobs that should be meeting minimum wages, but they're not because they're getting paid under the table.
Yeah. No, that's a fantastic point. It's one I think I find that a lot of people don't understand is that when you have all these people that are with H-1Bs, I can tell you they're willing to work for less and they're compliant. So 85% of them are Indian. Indian culture is very compliant. Like you don't file discrimination complaints. You don't complain that you didn't get the day off, right? Like, so, it's hard for Americans to compete against that because, we grew up and we're like, oh yeah, if you discriminate against me, I'm going to file a complaint. I want to take a day off to be able to enjoy myself. Like, that's not part of Indian culture. And so I think to your point, it makes it much harder for Americans to compete for those jobs.
Sure. But there's a compassion level there too, right? We do have employers that are taking advantage of that. They're sponsoring people and then throwing them in a trailer in the middle of a field that doesn't have running water, and then they have them work, and then they take out a huge chunk for housing. So I think it also sets up abuse. And do we have a basic level of human compassion, or don't we? Because you can't have it both ways.
Interesting. Okay. On housing. So
Yes.
Are you getting housing in Utah is expensive, and I hear about this a lot. And so I guess what kind of comments are you getting from delegates, and do you have a plan to deal with housing affordability in the state?
So I think a lot of people see that the mandates for high density housing in their little cities don't make sense. They absolutely don't make sense. And when I think it was HB 300, the last legislative session, was it HB or SB 300, the one for the beehive development? When that one didn't pass, the governor passed an executive order saying, no, we're going to handle all housing on a state level anyway. And I think that there needs to be some accountability, because we've built and
We got a little pause here. I think she paused. Hopefully she'll unpause. Okay.
we've built on the high density housing.
Are you back?
Oh, yep.
Okay.
Did I break out, or did you?
I think it was you. I assume it was you. At least I don't know, because I was still talking.
Oh no. It was giving me a hint that I was too long-winded. Anyway, so there's like 7 cars in the parking lot, and costs are supposed to be coming down, but they've built these buildings in areas where the land was never affordable. They've taken out essentially it's like a 30-year bond for this incremental financing. The bonds that used to be reserved for governments and for schools and things like that are now available to developers to address the housing crisis that's so bad that we had to pay millions of dollars to tell someone, or to have someone tell us there's a housing crisis. So I think there needs to be some accountability. And I was looking at the data, and it states that we're 97% full. Like the occupancy levels of all the of all of the properties were 97% full. However, they don't count properties that aren't 85% full, because they have to hit 85% to be considered stabilized properties. So we're not even counting all the new ones that are under occupied. And these are taxpayer funded. The PIDs, the HCRTs, all of these taxpayer backed incremental financing are going to be detrimental to Utah coming up really shortly. In Salt Lake, I think you have several units that haven't been able, or they've extended their financing twice to because they're not getting that 85% occupancy level. And if they take out bankruptcy, then that PID, if it's set up in a certain way, it will land on the taxpayers. For instance, I think it's an 80 million bond out of Colville. Is that Colville?
Okay.
That the developer went out of business or is taking out bankruptcy. And so that $80 million is going to land on I think their population is less than 3,000 citizens in Colville. So how does that make sense? And there's over 40 of those PIDs in Tooele County. And I know that there's some at Farmington Station, and this information also isn't public. Like, I've looked for it online. I've looked for it on the assessor's office. I went to the county assessor's office. They say it's with the city. I'm like, well, is any of this information being recorded anywhere? And it is, but it's not publicly available. So I think that that's a major concern, because if the citizens are on the hook for developers that took 30 years worth of an incremental tax on a property and put it in their pockets and then took off, we will not be the best managed state. We'll go from, quote, the best managed state to absolute abject poverty, because I don't know how we make up for all of that. It's awful.
Okay. So we have a couple minutes left.
Okay.
This is my quick question to you. It sounds like you'll be more transparent, and maybe even that you might, because a lot of what you're talking about is transparency issues. So it sounds like a difference with you would be we would get better information and more transparency.
We'll get more transparency. I'm going to ask the questions. For instance, the governor said recently in an article on, I think it was KSL, that it was a misnomer that data centers use water. Anyway, but then there was a law passed this last legislative session that we're going to gather the information from the over 40 data centers that we have here in Utah. Some of them, like general information is that the older ones can use 6 to 9 million gallons of water a day. So that's a lot more than zero.
Yeah.
But we probably ought to know. And if the state is prioritizing data centers over humans, I think people ought to know that. So having better data will drive better decisions, but that whole process is going to be more transparent. And I think I'm not afraid to argue. I'm not afraid for people to disagree with me, because first of all, nobody's perfect. Second of all, I can't see points of view from everywhere. If there's legislation that has hurt people, that needed to be decided before that legislation passed. That needed to be discussed before that legislation passed, even if it took another year to pass it. I think that that's more important than saying, hey, I passed 20 bills this session, and what did they do? Oh, I don't know. We'll fix it later. That's not okay. That is not good governance.
Okay. Well, we have a minute left. So do you want to tell people where they can find you?
Yes. So my website is votejengarner.com. It's going to be an uphill battle against one of the most affluent senators with a lot of power. Anything you can do to donate will be helpful, and I'll send you a letter and what I use the funds for, because I'm going to be transparent about that, not just on disclosures.utah.gov, but I think that people need to understand how that funding gets spent. I'm also on X at Help Me Gen G. So if you're okay with the truth, follow me on X.
Okay, and I'm just going to make a plug. I think everybody should support Jen. She's amazing. I think you heard today that she will be a huge change from what we have currently there. And I think I actually think it's deeper than just the President Adams. It goes to the Senate culture in general. So let's help her out. Go to her website. You got a comment here from Disagree Better. He says, get a Facebook page. Old people love Facebook. Do you have a Facebook page?
I do, and I have one for politics, and then I have my personal one. I probably should just add everybody to my personal one, because it's mostly about therapy, like the therapy we need. My therapy is doing something about it. Like, there's all these things that I just can't. Like, how do we have a sister city in China? How are we putting tech over people? And so I'm just doing something about it. That's how we get to the end.
Okay.
That's how we get to better things.
Okay, so you do have a Facebook page for the politics. And then when is the county convention? Because is this election at the county, or is it at the state convention?
So this district has 3 precincts in Morgan County, so it'll go to the state convention, which is April 25th.
Okay, I will be at that state convention, so
it'll be so great.
Yeah, so okay, everybody. So she is until April 25th. You got a few weeks left here.
And I'm not collecting signatures. I am convention only. If people don't want me, that's okay. I'll just keep telling the truth.
And I know she'll do that. So all right, great. Thanks for coming on, Jen. We appreciate it. Good luck.
Thanks, Dad. I super appreciate you. Have a good one.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, well, I hope that was helpful. I will just say Jen is amazing. I urge people to go and support her. I do think that the Senate needs a cultural change and that President Adams is corrupt and he needs to go. She obviously can't say exactly like that, but I will. And I do think it's problematic that he changed our laws and that he influenced a judge to give his granddaughter a lighter sentence for raping that 13-year-old. These are things, and here's my point. That actually indicates that there are deeper corruption problems than what we've even found in the Senate, because he just did that nonchalantly, like it's not a big deal. He needs to go. She would be a great senator because she's genuine, she's honest, and you can even see like she may not have all the answers, but she will go out there and try to get the information, try to figure it out, try to represent the people in that district to the best of her abilities. And I saw it when I was on the state central committee with her and other work I've done with her. An amazing person, completely genuine. Check out our website, donate to her. Let's help her out. Okay, on that note, thank you so much for listening to the Goud Crowd. I apologize, we went over a few minutes. We are on every Monday from 5 to 7 p.m. And you can find us on X at my handle, and then the Main Street Media Utah X and Facebook, or X, YouTube, and Rumble, and then also at kmmu.org. With that, I will sign off, and we will see you next week. Thanks.